Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Famvestor Podcast. I am your host, Sonny Burns.
And I'm your co-host, Sunmarie Burns.
We have a great episode for you guys today. It's really different than we've aired previously. We kind of just follow Byron Yoder's journey into running a 100-mile race. And this isn't a flat race. This is a hilly, crazy terrain race. We were watching some videos of the Bighorn 100-mile race, and there's people actually with hiking sticks like running the whole thing. Some people without it, but some people with, just because that's how muddy, that's how crazy this terrain is.
Right. Very intense experience, 100 miles, and it challenges you to the core is what I've understood through this interview. And just understanding like what you need to have, the mental fortitude, the mindset, the physical training in order to attempt such a thing, and how that might spill over in other aspects of your life in terms of how you view business and family and relationships and
time management,
Right.
just eking out every single, because I'm running a 100-mile race. He said like on a weekly basis, he was pretty much running 100 miles, 35 miles on Saturday, 25 on Sunday. And, so running marathons each weekend, two marathons a weekend,
as training.
As training for this 100-mile race. And he did it so quickly. He first started running. He never even ran a 5K prior to this.
Yeah.
And he first started running a year ago, and then just only first started seriously training for this race 6 months prior.
Right.
And he ran it this last June 2019. And so it's kind of just an incredible journey of discovery and of challenge and, willpower, and just going for your dreams and putting everything towards your goals, and just going for it when when everything's hard, but just keep pounding at it, keep going for it, persevere. And really, I feel like it's so contrary to so much of what we experience nowadays in our culture and all this instant gratification. I've been thinking a lot about instant gratification recently, just like fast food culture, and just binge watching TV culture, and just sleeping in, lazing about, our medical culture where just a pill fixes everything, and just get liposuction instead of exercising, or just like caffeine instead of getting good sleep, and just living paycheck to paycheck, taking everything out on instant loans, and not working, not saving for things, gambling, sweets, desserts, drugs, alcohol, just this, I don't know, all these vices, I guess, and how doing something like running or taking care of your body, fitness, and all these other things that create this resilience for yourself, rather than something to fall back on hard times, go back to alcohol or some bad thing, building up some resilient thing in your life, some habit, so like running, that you can always fall back on. If something goes hard, you go out for a run.
Right. And just the idea of challenging yourself towards something that is going to be hard.
Right.
And no question about it.
Outside your comfort zone, hard.
But you're still going to stick with this and see it through.
Right. Byron ran for 25 hours. He did really well, actually, especially being a newbie rider who've never even done another race, never even done a 5K. He placed 9th out of 180 runners. Actually, there's like 360 who ran it, but only half of them completed it. So of the people who placed, he placed 9th, which is insane.
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
I've never run before, but a really cool story. And and he is a dad. He's 36 years old. He's a father of 3.
Right. Married 10 years.
Married 10 years. So just a really great, wholesome story of a guy who's just living life, but still pursuing his dreams, pursuing his personal fitness goals, and just being all that he can be.
Right. And we also touch into his financial story, how he's an entrepreneur, and his journey in entrepreneurship with his family background, dabbling in entrepreneurship since he was a young boy, and how this kind of mental resilience training and fortitude has helped him further shape his life with his goals and financial freedom and his family goals, and pretty much every aspect of life has been impacted through this kind of self-discipline.
Right.
So it's
even with his kids, just
Right.
viewing what they can accomplish, where this limit really is.
Yeah. Right. And it's really inspiring and eye-opening. And I gained a lot from it. And I think our listeners will as well.
So without further ado, let's get to the episode all about family, finance, freedom, and fitness.
You're listening to the Famvestor Podcast. If you're looking to raise your family with intention, gain financial independence, and live a life of true freedom, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore together how to create thriving families, because strong families are the cornerstone for a world at peace.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm very excited today to have someone who's run a 100-mile race on the show. When I heard about this guy, I heard him from a mutual friend, Mike Stewart. If you're listening, thanks for letting us getting in touch with each other. But I just heard 100-mile race and how incredible that was. And so I knew I had to get him on the show. You know, I'm always thinking about mental toughness and just, building resilience, fortitude in your mind to really gain success in your life and go for those goals. And, who better to have than someone who's run a 100-mile race. And so this is Byron Yoder we're talking about. He's 36 years old, lives in Colorado, has 3 kids. And just excited to talk to him. So let's all welcome to the show, Byron Yoder.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, thanks for being here, Byron. So 100-mile race. Where did this idea even come from? Are you born from a family of runners? Where did you even get the idea that this was humanly possible?
Yeah, good question. So I grew up playing soccer, but not running particularly track and field or anything cross country, long distance, just running in soccer, and just always trying to get into the gym, to clear my mind, stay active. But after going to the gym for a while and being consistent, I knew that there was something more than just the gym. I kind of was getting burnt out. One day, my neighbor, so we moved into this house in Lakewood, Colorado. That's where I live. And my neighbor came over one day and he was like, "Hey man, you want to go on a run?" And I was like, "I can't," basically made up an excuse. Like, I'm busy today. And, of course I asked, "Well, what kind of run?" He's like, "Just, up in these foothills here." And I'm just like, "No way, I can't do that." And I had kind of heard about my neighbor.
Mountain.
Yeah. So I kind of heard, we had just moved in, we were kind of getting to know each other. And so I knew a little bit about him. His background, and so I was kind of hesitant. I said, "Well, let's reschedule so I can just kind of plan it in my mind." So yeah, a week later on Friday, he said, "Hey man, you want to go on this run?" And I was like, "All right, let's go." And so that's where it started. So where we live is essentially in the foothills, right outside of Denver.
Nice.
And so you have ideal hiking and trails and things of that nature.
Yeah, we love Colorado. I feel like it's the only place we vacation that we were like, we could actually live here. Like, we could settle down and live here.
Right. The nature there is astounding. And, you have the culture and community, and then you have this incredible wild nature right
and you're just immersed
right around
in it.
The corner. And it was stunning when we were there. So we were right.
So what kind of mileage did your neighbor take you on?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah, so of course this guy, just to give you a little background, I consider him my teammate. Mm-hmm. He doesn't like the word mentor, but so we call each other teammates. This wasn't necessarily a run. It was a hike up this mountain called Mount Morrison. And in the endurance world, you have something called power hiking. Like, you're not necessarily running everything, because you have to save your energy and endure what's to come. So of course he takes me up the hardest mountain that you go up Front Range, just to start, just to see what I was about. And this is the competitive spirit that he has. And so, I was in okay shape. Like, I didn't die, but it was like, whoa, like this was hard. And then of course, so you power hike to the top and run what you can, and then you run down. And to answer your question, that's like 3 miles. And then I just had a really good experience. It was nice to get outside, and I was like, wow, man, these mountains are this close and I haven't been doing this. What's wrong with me? Like, this is way better than the gym, and the workout, like, phenomenal. So then this turned into like every Friday, every Friday afternoon, we would connect. And he showed me all the trailheads, all the major trailheads in the area that he trained on. So he brought a lot of experience to the table, and showed me and introduced me to the sport. And that's really what propelled me kind of so quickly, was that he just took me under his arm and was like, hey man, let's just go run. And so every Friday we would go run, and it would start like just normal loops are like 5, 6 to 8 miles. And that's what we would do. And I didn't think anything of it much, just a Friday afternoon workout to change things up. And then that turned into it was like a Friday, and then it was like a Sunday early morning, like 5 a.m. We started doing that on 2 days a week. And my body was going through the transitioning. And then he one week showed me that, hey, you could actually run more than 1 or 2 days in a row. And I didn't even really know that. I was so naive to all of this. And just we strung together for the first time 4 days in a row running, 8 miles, 10 miles, 8 miles, 6 miles. And I was like, wow, that feels pretty good, when you're able to do that. And then from there, we just kind of built from there. And he always said that, hey man, if you don't have a goal, you're going to burn out. You're going to get tired because this stuff is pretty challenging, And so.
Right. You're not running flat grounds. You're running up mountain sides.
Yeah. So when he first said, hey, you need a goal in mind, I was like, nah, man, I can definitely take this 1 or 2 days a week is great to mix up my workout regimen, just to keep a healthy mind, healthy attitude, come home, just clear minded and be there for my family and my kids. But then as I progressed and we continued to go down this path, I realized, oh man, he is right. I definitely need a goal, to keep this going. So then we discussed different ideas, but at the end of the day, he didn't really say anything about it. He didn't push me in one way or another. And he wanted me to make up the decision on my own 100%.
And is he an ultra marathoner? Because, a lot of people don't even know this world. They know 5Ks and they think that's kind of the extent of it.
And that the ultimate is a marathon.
Right.
Right.
And there's nothing past that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's run, I think 8 or 9 100-mile races.
Wow.
Done the race across America on his bike. And he was one of the top Americans to compete.
Jeez.
Wow.
There.
What a neighbor.
And he was also an All-American wrestler.
Oh, wow.
So,
what is this race across America? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, so you start in California, I think in San Diego, and there's 50 racers, 100 racers, and you just go until you get to Maryland.
Wow.
And it's running?
In 13 days, 11 days or 13 days, something like that.
Oh, man.
It's bicycle.
So
it's in some ways kind of like a selfish sport because it takes a lot of time,
Yeah.
You really learn time management. It's like now or never. And if it's raining out, you have to go. So I don't know if that was that question.
No, that's a very interesting point that you bring up about the time commitment that it takes, because I know that when you're training for anything, half marathon, you name it, there's a lot of hours that go into that. And to be able to squeeze that into the mundane life that you live, your work, your family commitments, everything else, and then to be able to carve out this intentional time for, I guess, essentially self-improvement and just
personal goal,
personal growth, driving yourself to something greater, you really have to be intentional with that. So it's interesting that you bring up that factor of time management. And I can't even imagine training for a 100-mile race.
Right.
You must have been investing a lot of hours into that kind of a training. What did the training look like for you?
The training, so when I finally committed to myself, which was not only to myself, but I kind of announced it to the people closest to me, that basically was like, hey, I'm doing this. Yeah, I can't back out of this. So I put together a training plan. And
how did you select this? Is this the race you're talking about, the 100-miler race?
yeah, so it was the Bighorn 100 in Wyoming, the mountains of Bighorn Mountain Range, Wyoming, northern Wyoming. So you're on this plan and you just stick with it. And it makes, in some ways, life simple because this is what you're doing for the next 5 or 6 months. So my day was busy and it was intense for sure. Like I'd be, emailing and messaging customers at the trailhead, and then like having to just say, look, like I got to drop this and go. And then the second I'd get back in the car, I'd be like back to it. I mean, it was go, go, go for a bit there. But my weekends were designated for my long runs. So I'd get up at like 5 a.m. super early, 4:30, and the mileage builds over time. So you start with lower miles and then you just build your way up as you go into it. And of course, you're feeling your body. You're making sure that you're healthy. You're becoming really close with who you are and how your body works. And in some ways, it was a miracle that I was able to do this without getting injured because I didn't have a big base of running under me before getting into a high mileage plan.
Right.
So in the high mileage plan, I'm building muscles that I never had before. I'm building mental toughness. I'm building a spirit that is powerful you have to build, like you're going into any kind of weather condition in training because you don't know what the race is going to bring. So you can't just be like, oh, it's not sunny today, I can't go. And so, yeah, I mean, towards the end of my training plan, I was super committed. And of course, I'm competitive. And I wanted to do my best. And I wanted to prove to myself that when this was done, that I could look back and be like, I gave it everything I had. Like, any corners. When I get to that starting line, I can look at myself and I can say, hey, Byron, you've done everything you can do, buddy. Now it's just finding your groove. And so on Saturdays, I'd work my way up to where I was running 35 miles on Saturday, and that would take me about 5 hours.
Wow.
And then Sundays I'd run 20. And then I would not run on Monday. I'd recover. And then Tuesday I'd run like a shorter distance, like 6 miles. Wednesday would be a little bit longer, like 15. And Thursday would be like 8 to 10. And, so you'd go heavy 3 weeks, and then 1 week you would go lighter on the weekends. So you wouldn't do like the 25 to 35 miles. You'd go much lighter and let your body recover. And then you just stick after it and you learn a lot, and before you know it, you're preparing to go to this race and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I was super like just inexperienced and not knowing what I was getting myself into, which in some ways was really cool because I think that if I would have known every little aspect of it, I might have backed out in some ways. And I didn't even know what to expect. I just looked at the race as like, here we go. Here's my long run day. Here's a Saturday. I just got to go a little further.
What was the longest you had run prior to the big race day?
So I was consistently doing 35-mile training days, but the stuff is so hard on your body that if you were to try to go much further than that, I mean, I could have ran 50, but then like the next week you might pay a price.
Right.
Or you can get injured and overtrain. There's different aspects to this, but yeah, it really changed my view on the world. It was a beautiful experience. It changed my life.
In what way did it change your view on the world?
It put me into the moment and experiencing the moment now. And instead of looking down the road, oh, it's going to be so much nicer down the road when I have, whatever it is, like it puts you in the experience now. And that took time and practice to figure that part out. It was just great practice because that's what this sport forces me to do day in, day out. And that's why I like it, right. Is it puts you in the moment and it gives you this great appreciation for life and what you have now, what is so amazing now, and that tomorrow everything could change. I mean, I think that's something that we all kind of fall into, that trap. Like the future is going to be so much better. And you go through some experiences in your life and you realize that you really do have to enjoy life now. You have to experience life and take full advantage of what you have right now and enjoy it. And that's kind of what this gave me. And I don't know, it was just a great way to break up the routine.
So you ran this Bighorn, Wyoming race this year, is that correct?
Yeah, last June.
Last June. And when were you first introduced to running by your neighbor? I'm curious to know the time frame of when you first encountered running and you found a liking for it, and then at what point did you decide you wanted to go all out for this really challenging race? Did you do some marathons leading up to it? How many, was it years of a progression, or was it a pretty quick discovery that you have this love for the sport and you just want to go all out?
Oh, that's a great question. Started training with him last September.
Oh, wow. That is a short.
So that's only about a year ago now, a year and a month.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I started training with him in September. So about from September, October, November, we were going a day a week, but I was staying consistent. I was on a soccer team. I was just trying to be active. Mm-hmm. Nothing out of control though. And then we picked up the 2 days, probably towards the end of November, December. And then we strung some days together, end of December, January. And then I started my plan in January. It was kind of last minute. It was a last minute choice, decision. It was a little stressful because I was like, man, am I crunching this together too tight? And I just figured, hey, initially it was like I was going to go for a 50-mile race and then work my way up one day to this. I don't know. I just went for it.
That's crazy.
So you started training in January and you ran the 100 miles in June.
6 months later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
And it kind of, I wanted to prove to myself and to my, not necessarily prove to my family, but that if you set your mind to anything, it's possible.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I remember I recently completed my first marathon like a month and a half ago, and I remember the day after, my son, he's 4 years old. He's like, I see him running back and forth. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm training for the marathon. And I'm sure that's kind of what you mean, right? Proving to your kids you can do anything you imagine. Set your mind.
It's amazing that the impact that we have on our kids, of course, and when they see us do things that are a little bit out of the ordinary, just for their brains and for their development and just and the path that they go down because of these decisions as parents that we make, expect our kids to be something if we're not willing to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so with my family and my friends and people seeing me do this, of course it takes time for them to catch on. They think maybe, this is a fluke. Maybe this is just a quick in and out thing. Maybe a quick hobby that he's into, but then as time progresses, they see, oh wow, like he's into this. Like
a 5-hour, 35-mile run in the morning, you're into it.
Yeah, it's not like you have everybody has to run or train. What I recommend to people is just find something new that challenges you, and it can be anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be running ultra distances. And keep in mind, I had a lot of support, and it wasn't all me. Mm-hmm. This was a very unique situation in the sense that I teamed up and basically wanted to soak up all the information that my neighbor had, learn from him. And I saw for the first time how a guy who is an All-American at one point, how they train. Their mental toughness, their discipline, what they're willing to do. I never had that in my life. And for me, that was just so, it just drove me, and I was attracted to it. Lined up with a lot of my goals and where I wanted to go. So I just pursued it.
Can you just go back a little bit, meeting that neighbor and that mental toughness and discipline that attracted you? What can you say specifically, like an example of what he did differently than the average person?
So a lot of this depends on your schedule and your setup and how many kids you have. Do you not have kids? He has kids, he has a full-time job. And so a lot of his training had to be done at night after his kids would go to bed.
Wow.
I had more of a flexible schedule where I could kind of choose how I wanted to go about my training. He was going at night. And I mean, it just takes a phenomenal amount of work.
Power.
Yeah. Because he's waking up the next day at 5 a.m. and going to work, and seeing that he could pull that off and do well kind of showed me, hey, like, this is a great opportunity. And when you're out there in nature, of course, you're doing a lot of self-reflection. You're trying to become a better person. And I think in order to become a better person, this is something that a lot of us struggle with in terms of how do we get there? How do we become better? How do we improve? What do we do? What I've learned is in order to try to become a better person, you have to do something that puts you out of your comfort zone, whatever that is. And that's how you really learn, is when you're challenged. See, we to think that like the easy way out is the best route, but you can't grow that way. And this was extremely hard, and it definitely changed me. I mean, it changed my spirit, my attitude. We all have challenges, whether they occur currently, they might come up in 10 years when you're married. For us, we were pretty much just cruising by, and you reach that like 8 to 10 year mark, being married, and you have challenges. Everybody does. And so how do you handle these challenges? How do you vent in a positive way where these challenges aren't going to take you down and affect you in a negative way? And this was my way to vent in a positive way, to redirect my energy in a way that was going to hopefully make me a better person.
Right.
And that's why I really just kind of went for it. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we did a episode recently about just voluntary hardship and, just taking on these, I kind of like to call them like anti-vices, or like these positive things, that you can pour yourself into and really kind of center yourself. Like you said, like I really love running because I feel like I get my best ideas, I get my emotions out, I get to do something active and while, self-reflecting in nature. And no, I love what you say about that.
And I think you make a really important point that I think separates the average person who lives a mediocre life from a person who has the potential to reach greatness and really make an impact in other people's lives. And I think one of the defining characteristics is your ability to truly take charge of your life, regardless of the circumstance you find yourself in, rather than putting yourself in a victim mentality of saying, oh, well, this is my life and there's nothing I could do about it, and complaining and, writing off everything you wish you could do but couldn't do because of excuses. And just like that, taking initiative and pushing beyond. And I'm hearing that in your story and how it spills over not just in the realm of your athleticism, but also in the realm of your family life, your career ambitions, just that idea that you have the capability, no matter what you're going through, to be able to carve out time for improvement, growth, and continual striving for becoming better. So I'm really picking up on that note. It reminds me of something someone once told me, because I remember, I've studied art, and I went to meet a mentor, and she said to me once, she said, how's your professional portfolio like? Do you spend enough time creating art? And I was like, it's really hard. I have a child, and I work, and I just gave her all these excuses. And she said, you want to be an artist? I'm like, yes, I do. She's like, so tell me, what do you do between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m. before your child wakes up? I'm like, I sleep. And she's like, do you need to sleep? I'm like, well, I like sleeping. She's like, but think about that. You know, that's like 5 hours you could have. You could be purely dedicating towards something you're truly passionate about. So if you really do care enough about this ambition, whatever it might be, and for me it was art at the time, if you really do care about it, you can make the time for that. It just is a matter of rearranging your priorities and time management and figuring out what really is important to you. So what I'm hearing from you is a very similar message, and I think that it's a really powerful message for people to think about in their lives.
Yeah, and I feel like it's incredible to hear your story. You just starting to run, meeting your neighbor just a year after the race or before the race, and then just starting serious training 6 months before. But you placed really well, right? You were 9th place in this Bighorn 100 race out of like 180 racers or so. Did your neighbor run with you? How did he place?
Yeah, so in this particular race, every race is different in terms of the rules. This race, you had to carry your own gear. Some races, your pacers, who are essentially people running with you to keep you going, can carry your stuff. This race, I had the option to bring on 2 pacers. Most races, you can only bring on 1 pacer. But I was like, man, this is my first go here. I'm going to do everything I can. So I'm bringing 2 if I can find them. And so I recruited Mike, which, by the way, is what a spirit that guy's got. I mean, you could, for a better guy to run with. I wish I could run with him every day. I mean, he's just an incredible person, has got a bright spirit. And when you hit those low moments, that's the kind of guy you want on your team. Mm. So I picked up Mike at about 35 miles. He ran with me for about, 30, 33 miles. So he climbed the biggest peak with me.
Wow.
It was a 4,000 foot elevation, and went up it, we went down it, and it was just downpour, rain. These were horrific. I mean, I'm talking like, oh my goodness. But I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, you can't complain about it. It's just like, here I am. Like, that's why I trained in the mud.
Right.
And then so my neighbor picked me up at mile 65, and we just ran hard together. It was one of those things where I knew I was going to hit my lowest of lows with him, and I wanted all his experience at that point. Mike is a phenomenal runner. He doesn't run super long distance stuff. So where I put him was kind of somewhat strategy. Mm-hmm. And when I hit my low at mile 80, I really needed somebody there to not like baby me along, but just know that, hey, this guy's experienced. I'm going to be just fine.
Right.
And so, like, to back up a little bit about the race, when I started this race, I had never been in a race before.
Not even a 5K?
Never been in a 5K,
That's
never
insane.
ran a marathon. So I got to the line and I was just like, I've done everything I can do. I'm hopefully prepared. Finish it. The goal is to finish this. Like, the goal isn't to place. You're running this race and you're competing with yourself.
Right.
At the end of the day, yes, there are guys there that are there to break course records and do things like this, pro athletes and things. They're still there to compete with themselves.
Yeah.
The last 10 miles of the race, if you have it in your legs, then that's when you can kick up a little competition if you feel like it. But I was just finding my groove at the beginning of the race. And I was just like, well, I'm going to pass this group of people. Okay. I'm running with this group of people for like an hour. Like, I'm talking to this guy and I'm talking to this guy, and where are you from? And where are you from? And just, okay, well, I feel okay. Like, my stomach hasn't turned yet. I'm staying hydrated. My nutrition's good. I'm going to continue until you find your pace. And then that's when I realized in the race, I was setting many goals for myself within the race. So then I was like, okay, I feel like deep down I can finish this thing within 24 hours. And I had benchmarks from my other teammates and things that I kind of knew was possible. Then the conditions got just horrific. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. And when I was climbing, it's called Jaws. They call it Jaws with Mike. I mean, my power hiking was really strong and I felt good about myself. And we were just kind of we were just doing our thing. And we were passing people and guys that had passed me way early in the race. We were catching up to them. And then we left the midway point and I was in 4th or 5th place. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, I have no idea. But you still have 50 miles to go.
Right.
Anything can happen. You can burn up. Like you can definitely, things can change quickly. And they did. Coming down that hill, that mountain, it started raining. It got muddy. It got slick. It got dangerous. There's a raging river. So I lost a few positions there. But then at that point, I realized, hey, I have a chance at a top 10 finish here. I've really got to push hard.
Wow.
And I just hung on. And at the very end, I was getting passed. I was in like 7th and I was getting passed. Here comes a guy. Boom, he passes me. Put me into 8th. Another guy, 9th. And my neighbor, Jake, turns back and he goes, hey, man, you getting tired of this yet? Or something like that. He's like, you want to go? And so that's when I realized that you think you're done, but you actually have more than you really think. And I was in 10th position, and at this point I was power hiking, and it's just like I was in a low spot, and I realized at this point that if I was going to keep this up, it was going to take me a long time to finish the race. Mm-hmm. That's really what it was going to be like. I had 10 miles, 15 miles to go, and I'm doing the numbers in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. So I either start running now or I just accept the fact that this is going to take a little bit more time. And that's when I truly experienced everything that this has to offer, this sport. I somehow mustered up strength to kick up a run the last 10 miles. And I was so tired and exhausted. I almost had, it was an out of body kind of experience, not in the sense, cause you have to be in control. Like you can't fall, but like, it was really like, it's kind of hard to explain where you're going with like serious exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You're like 20 hours in at this point, run 90 miles.
You're just on autopilot. You're just going. And then we cruised and we finished the race running. We passed up another guy that had passed me, and I went into 9th. And I felt like after this race, first of all, I pushed myself incredibly hard at the very end. And did I pay a price for it? Probably. Like for a first kind of experience like that, it's probably not a good idea to push that hard, because my recovery was a good, like, I don't know. It took me a good 2 months, 6 weeks to recover. Big blisters on the back of my heels. But then I said to myself, hey, like, you're able to do this. You can't give it up. Like, you might have something there to continue with. And that was the gist of the race. I mean, it was pretty much just like, keep going.
What happened at mile 80? You said you hit a low point, 80 miles into this race. And okay, so backing up just so viewers, we live in New Jersey, and the width of New Jersey apparently is like 70 miles. So like to cross a whole state, and you're at like mile 80 and you hit this low point. What triggered that, and how'd you fight through that?
What triggered it was, it started to get, so it had rained a lot and the conditions were pretty bad. And coming out of it, it's called Sally's Footbridge, the river. The climb was just horrific. It was tons of mud. You're slipping and sliding everywhere. You're basically exhausted. The conditions they're not prime, and you're beat and you're worn out. And you hit a spot where you're in such a low place nothing matters. And that was a beautiful experience because I realized at that point, that's the closest to death probably one can get, honestly, through your own personal choice of, I want to do this race. You know, of course, there's other ways, but this was like, nothing matters. I don't care about any material objects I own. I don't care about, like, you're at a moment that's just like, it's painful. But you have to just keep your mind. You have to keep positive and know that you're going to snap out of it in like 2 or 3 hours. You'll just be out of it. You just got to keep powering through. And it was cold. It got really cold. And I just kept going. I just kept, you know, I slowed down a little bit, which is okay. Yeah. And you just have to keep going. You can't quit. Like, these things are so intense that, like, a lot of people think they can just get into these races without preparing and doing the right work, and they can't finish. You can't finish if you don't do the work. And that's the thing, is like, you can't kid yourself through these. So yeah, I mean, there's like 365 runners, and 50 or 60% of them dropped out.
Wow.
At that point. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where it really tests your mental aptitude, your ability, all your training, just your mental toughness. And it's interesting because I have a little comparison here where when you're going through extreme difficulty in training or whatever you're doing, there's always a recovery zone. There's always recovery. So you might be climbing something, but you're going to have a level off, a flat area where you're going to be able to get yourself back together. But you can't quit while you're climbing. You just have to believe that, hey, when I'm done with this hard part, it's going to get a little bit, there's going to be some relief. And I compare that with my life, which is just an amazing comparison that I've put together for myself, where if life becomes very challenging, or maybe like, you know, in work or personal life, you're going through challenges, hardship, whatever might be faced with. You know that if you just keep going and don't give up on the day, that there's going to be recovery in that. That things will come back around. But I think that with this instant gratification type culture that we have, people give up on themselves. Right. And they say, you know what, this is too hard. I can't see myself out of it. I'm done. Instead of pushing and then accomplishing and then reflecting and learning from that.
That's awesome.
That's very profound, actually. Yeah. I feel like probably the biggest challenge with such an intense experience is dealing with your mind.
Yeah,
right?
It's all a mind battle. It's all a mind game.
The weakness of your mind, the strength of your mind, and that training for such an event, of course, is physical, but more so even than that, because you can only train so much in advance. It's training your mind to have that fortitude to just persevere no matter what.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, it's those, you are your worst enemy. It's in training that those thoughts come through that you need to conquer. That's the whole point of the training, is that you've been there with those thoughts. Oh, Byron, you can't do this. You can't pull this off. Who do you think you are? All those thoughts, wherever they come from, they're there. Being able to control those thoughts is a lot of the battle. And so, you know, this as a runner, you've done a marathon. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm your way. And you're like, with enough experience, you realize, here we go again. Here's the thoughts. But guess what? Sorry, but I own these thoughts and you're not going to win. After a while, you realize it's just like, here we go again. They just keep coming and you kick them away. And you have different techniques on how you deal with these different things that pop into your head. But it's funny because, you know, if your kid in trouble or whatever, you know, you put him in the corner, you know, until he can get himself together. Same with these thoughts. I put these thoughts into the corner. This is my technique. And when they're ready to come out, they can come out, but they've got to be positive, you know? And it's like, oh, we're not here yet. Okay. Yeah. Just stay over there. It's kind of,
Sounds like some
that.
love and logic parenting to me.
So I think this is a good segue to explore beyond. So we've talked a lot about yourself and your self-thoughts and yourself.
Your journey and growth through running and all the realizations you had through it.
Right. And I know, you're not alone in this. You're married 10 years now, right?
Yes.
And you have 3 kids. So tell us about your family during this whole time. How did they take it? How did your wife take it? How did you see a direct impact in your family life based off of this very extreme change in personal
lifestyle, training regimen, all that.
Training, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if your dad is willing to go out into the snow and run, in whatever circumstance, then there shouldn't be much of any excuse that they give me why they don't want to go to Taekwondo today. Or, you know what I mean? Like, the complaining starts to slowly go down. And performance naturally goes up. I mean, it's just, you're leading by example. And you see this. Your kids see you walk into the door, tore up, and they're like, wow, it gives them a different perspective in their development, in their brains. And with my wife, obviously I couldn't do this without her. I mean, she's been incredibly supportive, and you have to have an incredibly supportive spouse in order to accomplish this stuff because it requires so much time. There's been many times where she's had to not only take care of the kids, but has to manage the business, manage customers while I'm out doing this stuff. And so that's part of why I wanted to really try to do well, was that I'm not out here to kid myself. I didn't want to fake my way into this. I wanted to do my best. And this sort of mental toughness spills over into your family life, right? So you look at time differently. I used to look at 5 minutes as like, 5 minutes, I can just like mess around on the phone or, watch a quick YouTube clip or whatever we do. 5 minutes, I can seriously go outside and I can jump on the trampoline with one of my kids for 5 minutes and engage with them. That's what this has given me, because time management is so crucial that you just look at time differently, and you realize that there isn't. I wish we had more time. We kind of by nature like to float through life, but unfortunately, life is short, and we need to use this time wisely. So that's really what this all gave me. I don't know if that answers your question about family side of things.
I was curious how it was impacting on the family front, and I think that's really profound. I think it's very easy when you're in the mix of raising a family to just kind of go into autopilot mode. I'm sure anyone who's a parent can relate to that feeling of just like, well, just got to get through this day, and you're taking for granted all the little moments that you have. And the idea that you could kind of disconnect from that very easy trap that we all fall into, which is just taking for granted the days that we have with us and kind of wasting precious time, which could have been invested better. And you could kind of overcome that and make the most of your moments is really a profound realization.
Yeah. And I also realized, we're so addicted in America to material wealth, to objects. Who are you as an individual when that stuff goes away? I mean, that's what we have to ask ourselves that one day. Hey, we might not have this business that we've created. I mean, this might sound a little bit, pessimistic, but it's true. Things happen. So if you're put into a situation, your lowest of lows, how are you going to handle this? So where are you with yourself and your heart? So if you're good with yourself, then nothing can defeat you. Not even losing everything that you've built up. We put too much attention to, because I used to do this. I used to think all day long about how can I make more money. More money is going to lead to more happiness. The next vacation is going to make me happier. The next car is going to be that much, more comfortable, whatever. And I think as you get older and you realize that none of that really, it sounds kind of annoying to say, but none of that matters. Like, you have to dig a little bit deeper to figure out where your true joy comes from. And that comes from within. You have to work on yourself, and it's painful. Like, I wake up every morning and I'm not going to lie. I'm like, oh man, I got a hard one today. Like, go and, train in the mountains here and do like 10 miles. And I don't really want to do it. And so I think it's great to have something that you can separate what's important to like what's not important. And this has given me that ability to do that.
Right.
That's cool. And it's awesome how you say you've kind of built this life of freedom and you have the freedom to do this now. And I know, you have 3 kids and your wife is stay at home, I believe. What is this? What have you created? Like, what have you designed your life to be that you have this freedom?
Yeah. So, I'm in the car space. I'm in the car industry, here out in Colorado. We have big mountains, skiing. People need 4-wheel drives. Reliable 4-wheel drive. So what better car than to go into some sort of Toyota 4Runner, Toyota FJ Cruiser, Toyota Sienna minivan, anything like this, right? So there was a demand. We found a niche. My brother and I, we worked together, and we just essentially found this, discovered it, and just went after it and attacked it and gave it everything we had. And so we became very experienced in this through time and through a lot of failure, through a lot of learning experiences, a lot of pain, that led us to where we're at today. And it's a lifelong experience where you're constantly learning. It's never going to end. And so with this niche that we discovered, it spilled into the rental space with cars. So essentially we run a car rental company, and our job is to service tourists and local customers and to make sure that they have safe cars to drive around in. And through this, when you have your own business, you're able to put systems in place that allow you to. The goal is to not have to work. I mean, who wants to work? It's to free up. You want to free up as much time as possible to where other people are doing work for you. Not trying to sound all like, big-headed or anything, but it's like, that's the ultimate goal. And so as you keep going and you keep working hard, that's one of the positive effects of doing that, as you guys have, experienced.
Right.
Is then you can start to experience life and the way you want to experience it. Make decisions that what's in your family's best interests and what's in your best interests, and just literally just have a freedom-based lifestyle has always been my goal. And all businesses to me and all money in general to me, it just equals freedom. Like, money to me isn't going to be like something that's going to necessarily make me more happy. It's just going to bring me a little bit more freedom, and I can live life how I want to live it. And I can make decisions, I can make my own decisions, and I don't have to report to anybody and things like this.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Money definitely helps you buy some freedom, but yeah.
Yeah, but that, like, a very clear defining difference between money bringing happiness versus money bringing freedom. And it's actually the freedom to choose the life you want that brings you happiness. And I'm curious about when this realization came about for you. You had mentioned earlier that in your younger years you were working more of a 9 to 5 software development cubicle style job. At one point, did you feel, this isn't for me, and I actually want something bigger and grander than this for my life? I want more freedom to really carve out the life that I envision.
Yeah, I mean, I think a cubicle is challenging for everybody. I mean, whether they admit it or not. And for me, it was just how I was raised too. My dad kind of always figured out things on his own.
Mm-hmm.
That spilled over to me as well. I love talking with people and dealing with people. Software sales, unfortunately, is like intellectual property. So there's like a lot of stuff over the phone. You're talking about stuff that you didn't really develop. You're just there to sell it. I really wanted I wanted to sell a tangible item.
Mm.
Well, I love negotiating. I love the feeling I get when I'm in that sort of environment. And it's a learned skill, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's entertaining. I love it. And, one of the first things that I had the opportunity to get involved in was after this job, I went out to Asia and I became an English teacher. And I just found out about this opportunity, went after it, was like, hey man, this is my only way to get out of this corporate job setting. It was a little bit different that I might have a chance at succeeding, doing well at. Basically doing something, I think in order to be successful, you have to do something that not everybody's willing to do. Kind of thinking outside the box. This is my way of thinking outside the box. And so when I got there, I worked hard, and my goal was to just work and save and come back, and who knows what would happen. But just kind of crossed that bridge when I got there. So when I got back, I was presented with, so a family member came up to me and he's like, hey, I sampled this product down in Arkansas, ATV cargo accessories. So like they're cargo bags that go on ATVs. And he's like, hey, I sampled them. I've already sold them. Like, I don't, why don't you come down to Arkansas with me and we can see what he has if you're interested or whatever. And so this guy was sitting on just like a whole warehouse of product that he had imported from China. And he was a very wealthy guy. He was an heir of J.B. Hunt Transportation Company, multi-billionaire. Mm-hmm. And this guy was just dabbling. It was at a car dealership, one of many that he owned. And so he hired this other guy to get rid of this product. And so I went down there and I looked at my brother-in-law and he looked at me and I said, I'll take it all. And they were kind of surprised. I mean, they were kind of taken back. I was young and I went all in. I mean, like pretty much.
Wow.
And, yeah. And so we backed up U-Haul trucks. We loaded up all these boxes of cargo bags and had no clue how we were going to sell them. Up to Denver, like 6 miles to the gallon in the U-Haul truck. We started selling them, and we started selling them on Craigslist. Basically, I started on Amazon. I learned how to sell product on Amazon. We had an eBay thing going. And then I learned, wow, this is the power of the internet. And I don't know where this is going to take me, but this is cool. And this surely beats having to wake up and go somewhere. Kind of right place at the right time. Very grateful for certain timing and just other powers that existed outside of my own that made this possible. I was younger. It was just right timing. And so I learned through the internet that there is a possibility that you could be making money. There are no store hours. So yeah, we had to figure out how to get rid of all these boxes. And so that spilled over into other ventures and then into essentially the car world. And that took me into where we're at today. And who knows where we'll be tomorrow. So
you mentioned that your dad always liked to steer his own ship. Do you want to share a little bit about your family upbringing and how that shaped the way you think about business and about life in general? What's the story there? What did he do? And how did that help you to think differently than the average person?
So my dad kind of had to he had to work hard. There were 6 of us. He had to learn how to, you know, he was raised in a family of 8, and just a great businessman, great negotiator, taught me all of these sort of skills. I grew up around, he had a flower distribution company, so he put flowers in like a bunch of convenience stores in Texas, where we were growing up for a few years there until I was like 15, moved here. Yeah, he had like 350 stores, and then he shifted into something else. He shifted into real estate. He's done plenty of fix and flips. He's dabbled with a lot of different things in his life. And so that obviously, kind of spilled over to me and to my development. And with that, you get to learn from his mistakes. That's the whole beauty in having children, is you get to hopefully learn from your parents' mistakes and improve. And then as every generation goes on, stronger family is the goal. And so he was always doing his own thing, and he was always fully committed. And I think that's the thing that I've really learned, is you can't be 90% in. I mean, you have to be fully committed to make it work. Because if you're wishy-washy, then it just it gives yourself reasons to kind of back out, to convince yourself that this isn't for you. So
if there's a back door, there's always the option to listen to that inner voice in your head that's giving you those negative thoughts, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Byron, we're going a little long here, but I'm curious to know, I feel like there's so much about your attitude, your mindset. Do you have any, do you want to explore any of, what do you feel like is some of your best habits and attitudes?
Best habits and attitudes. I think my attitude recently is just keep going, just plug away. Like, even if you have a day that comes up that you have several challenges, have a good attitude about it, and know that, hey, tomorrow is going to be a better day, and that what you accomplish today is going to help you for tomorrow. Don't complain, just get it done. Like you're going to have good days and bad days. That's inevitable. So just accept the fact that your challenges are coming. And if you have a week of really good days, just know that there's going to be some bad days to come, and expect them. So when they come, you're not like surprised and freaking out. And of course, this takes a lot of practice. Like, I'm nowhere near where I need to be or where I want to be with this sort of perspective. But I've had to learn this because, it's like, just like I said, I mean, you have a few good days and you think that's going to go forever. And just staying consistent is kind of my habit. Like, waking up, doing the same thing can be tough, but I think it's healthy too. And it's healthy for your kids to build in structure. Obviously, I think after this interview, where I stand and what I do. I basically just train, work, and take care of my kids every single day, and try to improve on that.
Nice. And for, couples and families just starting out, I feel like we haven't dug too much into the family, a little bit, but I'm sure that it seems like there's a lot of depth there that you have to offer. What's your best advice for couples, families just starting out?
Patience. Everybody needs to relax and just know that it's not going to happen overnight. And the person you want your spouse to be may or may not be that way. You just got to be patient with them and know that down the road, have faith that down the road, things will evolve in a positive fashion, and just support each other, work hard, and be honest with yourselves. Like, I think that we sometimes like to kid ourselves down a path that's just going to burn time and energy, and just really try to just look at yourself in the mirror and just stay true to yourself.
Nice. And what do you hope people, get inspired by when they hear your story?
You can do anything you set your mind to. Your mind is a very powerful tool, and it can be used for such positive things, and to create absolute greatness around you. And when you put yourself through ultimate challenge, that will attract a positive sort of energy, and good people will be inspired, and those good people will start to be part of your life. And you will attract a positive reinforcement in your life that will help you accomplish your goals when you're in those challenging moments.
Awesome, Byron. Thank you so much. I think those are great, and really enjoyed that whole progression that you kind of took us through. And that was cool.
Yeah, fascinating journey.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk forever about this stuff. It's so interesting to me, and it's I'm just very blessed. And thanks for reaching out to me and making this possible. This has been a great experience.
Oh yeah, thanks for being up for it.
Yeah,
it's like, keep going, right? Good luck to you guys, and keep working.
Same to you. I feel very inspired. Very inspired for sure. It's kind of helped me understand more why people run and why they do these things.
I was like, okay, it's 10 p.m. Sunray. I gotta go run to New York City and back now.
And I just look at him like
I'll be back at 2 a.m.
a madman, and I'm like, why? Why do that to yourself? And actually, so it's very interesting to hear the rationale behind it, and also just the life-changing impact that it's had. And it's making me respect running a lot more. It's like, oh, maybe I should be more of a runner now. Because I ran a half marathon with Sonny last November, and I gifted that to him as his birthday gift. Because
she ran the whole thing with me.
I did.
Wow.
13-minute mile pace, but she ran the whole thing. Didn't walk a step.
I'm still proud of myself, even though like a 70-year-old grandma passed me.
Right at the end.
That doesn't matter.
He zooms past them.
I'm like, oh no.
People ask me all the time, they're like, well, how do I start? Oh my gosh, I got a busy schedule, or I'm overweight, or whatever excuse. It's like, okay, you can walk 10 steps, right? Yes. So run 2 or 3.
Right.
Walk 10 steps, run 2 or 3, and you work your way up.
Right.
There shouldn't be an excuse why we can't all stay healthy. I mean, we focus so much on maintaining our homes, our cars, our families to some degree. Whatever happened to the idea of really taking care of ourselves, and
right,
putting ourselves first, and taking care of ourselves, and turning ourselves into just the best version that we could possibly have.
Yeah.
Should be the forefront,
Right.
Yeah, I feel like having that physical fitness, aligns your spirit, yourself with so many other avenues and helps you achieve so much more. But when you're out of balance with that, it kind of takes away from everything else. Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's actually really great advice. Cornerstone of marriage is just that perseverance through the good days, through the bad days, through everything in between, and just like sticking with it and knowing that it's all worthwhile. It's this commitment you made. And I think that that's a profound message that I've heard throughout this whole conversation we've been having in this episode.
Yeah, the commitment towards your goals, towards your vision, and just the commitment itself too.
Yeah, I think with enough, one last quick little comment, but with enough time and patience, you will get a breakthrough. That's what people have to remember, is the breakthrough is there. If you put your full heart and will into it, you will get relief. And it's a beautiful moment. Stick it out, you can't quit.
Awesome. Byron, thank you so much. I feel like this has been a great episode. A lot of golden nuggets there. Great to see your journey and how you went through it and how you did so well with it and your continued path there. Byron, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Take care.